Hi, I'm Jo Clark, and thanks so much for joining me today. This is the Redefining Midlife podcast, a podcast designed for the 40-plus woman who is determined to challenge society's myths and beliefs around midlife. It's for the woman who is inspired and ready to define midlife her way. Join me each week as I chat to health and wellness experts for up-to-date information on how to live well as some special conversations with incredible everyday women redefining what midlife can look like. Here's to making our next half of life even better than the first. Today, my guest is Clare Wood, and as you'll soon discover, Clare is an incredibly accomplished woman who wears many hats. She's a money mentor, speaker, podcaster, and can now add author of a best-selling book to a hat rack. Clare shared that she's also a gym junkie, a drinker of wine, passionate traveller, a wrangler of 2 boys, a manifester, numbers nerd, and a reality TV addict. Professionally, Clare is a qualified accountant, a CPA, and she began her career in the traditional manner. But today she helps service-based businesses to scale while creating a lifestyle they love. To support her clients to make more money, Clare works in a more unconventional way by using proven and practical money management principles combined with powerful mindset work. She is a great example of how you can use your existing skills and knowledge from your profession, and when combined with an area of passion and a good dose of inspiration and bravery, you can create an amazing career and a life that's unlike anything you've ever seen or experienced before. Clare Wood, welcome to the Redefining Midlife podcast.
Well, it's wonderful to be here, Jo. Thanks for having me.
Oh, absolute pleasure. Now, I've spoken about you at the beginning when we did a bit of a preamble, but you haven't heard that yet. So I'm just going to go straight into it. You do wear a number of hats, and people at the start of the session would have been able to hear that. You're a newly published author of the wonderful book called Intentional Profit, and you're a money mentor to many 6- and 7-figure business owners. You're also a wonderful speaker and successful podcaster in your own right with the Clare Wood podcast. And that's now celebrating 4 years of broadcasting. So well done. That's not easy to do. Did a little 10-year-old Clare or even 20-year-old Clare ever in her wildest dreams imagine that her life might look like this?
Oh, what a great question. So it's kind of funny. I think that when you're meant to do amazing things with your life, it's on your heart. But I didn't have the courage to step out and do a lot of the things that I'm doing now until much later in life, truthfully. I was a straight A student through school. I was, I won all the awards. I was that kind of person. And then at my 10-year reunion, one of my teachers saw me and she said, "What are you doing?" And, I was in an accountant role at the time, working for the public sector. And she goes, "Oh, I'd always thought you'd have done something really special with your life." And that comment that she just made as a pass away comment really stuck with me because I was like, I thought I would too, and I haven't. Not to take anything away from accountants who work in the public sector.
Yeah.
I know that that's some people's path. But for me, it wasn't my destiny. But, I went back and continued on life. And it was only in my mid-30s that I actually stepped out and started my own business. I was 35. I got made redundant on mat leave with my first child. And that is when I had to get pushed, basically, before I had the courage to start my own business. So I've only been doing this relatively recently. And yeah, I've feel really proud of what I've accomplished so far. And I know there's so much more to happen, but I think that that's the thing that I would say is that I probably had a niggle, but it took me a long time to actually get the courage to leap in and take action.
And what a time for that to happen too, dear God. I mean, that's really when you're pregnant with your first child to be made redundant. It's a now
It happens to
push.
1 in 4 women in Australia to this day.
Get out, is that right?
Yeah, statistically. So
Wow.
there you go.
So that's obviously not an uncommon
No,
occurrence.
it's not an uncommon
That's shocking,
thing.
isn't it?
And my old boss and I are really good friends, and he always says to me, he goes, it's the hardest thing I've ever had to do. And I'm like, it's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah.
Because if I was trying to navigate being a mum and working my old corporate job, I used to work 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And instead, I've been really blessed to build this beautiful business and have a life like this. And it's sometimes the universe just gives you a big old shove.
I know there's a great book called The Beautiful No, and I just love that. It was, it's things that you think are happening for you and devastating, then at the time when that somebody says no, you can't progress any further, ends up to being the best gift ever. Like that no is just gives you and launches you somewhere else. Now that's a lovely story. So was finance and that world always something that you wanted to be a part of, even when you were quite young, or is it something that you just thought you might do as you got towards the end of schooling?
Well, I was a bit of a maths dork. So I used to compete. There's a thing called the Maths Olympiad,
Yes.
which is where schools compete with each other and you do maths problems basically. And it's not just doing maths problems, but if you get a maths problem wrong, you actually lose points. So unlike doing a test at school where you earn points, you can also lose points if you get them wrong. So what they're trying to do is discourage you from just having a stab or a guess. You also have to produce all of your workings to get to the solutions. Anyway, I'm dorking out already. So I always loved maths, but I wasn't sure what I was going to do with my life when I left school. But my dad's an accountant, and what we see this a lot, don't we? Where something comes down, if you meet a doctor, usually they're from a family of doctors. In my family, my dad's an accountant, I'm an accountant, and my two brothers are accountants. So it's definitely something that I saw my dad.
It'd be fun around the Christmas table with you.
Oh yeah, a lot of dry jokes. But yeah, I guess I kind of went down that path because that's what had been shown to me. We grew up in a family with not a lot of money. And when my dad went and did his accounting degree at university was when he finally got a semi-decent salary. And so I thought, well, I've got to do something. I've got to go to uni. I've got to get a good job. And so that's sort of why I went into that path. And for many, many years, I knew that I wasn't meant to be a career accountant. I resented my dad. I was like, you made me do this. And the irony is, it's come full circle because this is now what I help people with. I help people with money. And it's such a bloody blessing that I had gone down that path, that I am a qualified accountant. And so when I talk about money, I'm talking about it from a really practical sense as well as the mindset sense. So again, an example of how sometimes things happen. You're like, why have I landed up in this job? And it's like, it was all meant to be, to lead me to where I am now. So yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. And because you had to create what you're doing now, did you have anybody that you looked at and you thought, oh, I wouldn't mind doing something like that? Or is it just a matter of you try something that fits or it doesn't fit and then you go down that path? How did you do what you're doing?
Yeah. And I think this is the thing. I work with, I've been asked this question by people in early stage of business. And they're like, how do you know what to do? And I'm like, you don't. You're just figuring things out. And at the start, I worked with everyone. I did everything. I helped people with any business problem they had. And then I started to recognize, I really love working with this group of people. And then I niched down and I niched down. And then when I was doing some of my early spiritual work, I had a bit of an aha, which is that I was hiding this pocket of me, which was the accountant. I was like, no one wants to hear about that. And I'm like, but that's part of who I am. It's part of my skill set. It's what I'm doing with my clients. I'm teaching them budgeting and cash flow. And so I actually just embraced that part of me. And that was only a couple of years ago that I really stepped into, this is exactly who I am and what I do. I didn't know anyone else that was talking about both mindset and accounting, but I wanted to be the person doing that. And since then, I found out there's actually quite a few people who do what I do. I'm like, I'm the only person in the world who does this. No, that's not true.
But there's only one Clare Wood, so that's what makes.
There's only one Clare Wood. That's it. And yeah, I think that it's just forging your own path until you find what feels aligned. And, I'm sure you've been on your own journey as well, that you sort of over time start to go, I actually really like this, or that's not really my cup of tea. And the only way that you really find this out often is by trial and error.
Yeah, that's right. And it's sort of the analogy I've had before where you're trying on a pair of jeans and they're skinny jeans. You go, no, that's not going to be a good look or a good fit. So I'll put on the boyfriend jeans instead. It's a matter of trying different things and keeping what fits well and then discarding what doesn't. And one of the things I love the story of you saying that, because on the podcast, I love to see and have guests who come in and they use their skills in a different way, because often as women get older, they think that they have to stay in what they're doing and they're not all that happy, or, I'm resigned, basically not resigned as in I'm leaving a job, but I'm resigned to this and my lot in life. So we can't be what we can't see. So having other people to give examples of what they're doing with that particular skill set, but using it in a slightly different way, that really is, it's inspirational to see that.
And I think the thing is too, it's never too late. I'm just coming into a new evolution now. And I think this is the thing. Sometimes we can think, I know for ages, I was like, it's too late. I'm stuck in accounting land for the rest of my life, even though I knew that it wasn't lighting me up on a soul level. And, and now I'm like, oh my gosh, my life looks so different. And it's just never too late to get started.
Well, that's right. The possibilities and the opportunities out there, that they're endless, but it's a matter of, I suppose, that negative self-talk that we often have, which is coming, you get plenty of the reinforcement of those of the messages on a daily that you're too old, or it's not going to be right, and it's really unsafe to do. So that keeps people held back. But it is lovely to have those examples. So well done to you, and to change and to morph and to grow and to not see where you are now as the end spot, that there's just you're really only just beginning.
Exactly.
So is that exciting? Do you have, I noticed on your stories the other day you were talking about a planning day that you have with your husband, just to map out some more of the dreams, and is that something that you encourage people to do?
Oh, 100%. It's one of my favorite days. Like, you sit down and you go, what does the next year look like? We've actually just done the next 18 months, and just leading into some of the possibilities and getting excited about it. And then, we look back on our boards that we did years ago and we're like, tick, 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 tick. I've done that. I've created that. And the way that you do that is by just putting that intention out there and then taking steps towards creating it.
Yeah.
So I'm a huge believer in vision boards and in goal setting. And I'm excited. I'm excited about some of the things that we've put down to
Oh,
achieve.
that's fantastic. I suppose you can't, I won't say you won't do. Are you happy to share at least one of those things that you're?
Yeah, for sure. I can share a few if you want. So one of the big things, we've bought at the dream spot. But I know you've read the book, Jo, and in the book I talk about how we've bought this shack, and people are being a bit dramatic, and then they come to our house and they're like, it really is very small. Our kids are in bunk beds, in a very small room, and like we're not living on the poverty line or anything like that. But look, when the real estate agent sold us the house, he goes, oh well, there's two things you could do. He's like, you can knock it down or you can knock it down. And we're like, we need to live here. And he was like, oh, I'm sure you could make that work too. So one of our big goals is that we want to build our dream house. Now that we've got our dream block, we're in a waterfront home, but we want to build our dream house here. My husband and I also have our 10-year wedding anniversary next year. I was a late starter in a lot of areas in life. I only got married, in my mid-30s. And so it's our 10-year wedding anniversary. So we've decided we want to renew our vows. And we also want to go have like a second honeymoon in the Maldives. So we're now looking at waterfront bungalows and getting excited about that. There's a lot that we want to do in terms of structuring our time and our week. So we spoke about hiring a nanny maybe to take the kids to the after school activities. I set some personal things that I want to do. We're doing a lot of work on our marriage, like working through, going deep into that. Personally, I want to go and learn, I want to learn how to do makeup. It's something that a skill I'd love to learn. So there's lots of really cool things that we had fun playing around with. Obviously with the business, I set a lot of revenue goals and things like that we want to be achieving and creating. I really want to leverage my book and go and, as we spoke about off air, finish my book tour, do an Audible version, continue to promote the book. So, and I also have a second book that I'm really excited about. I haven't even started writing it yet, but I know what it's about. I know the title. I'm getting really excited about that as well. So yeah, lots to come.
There is lots to come. And that's the sort of thing that I do when I mentor women as well, is to look at just one area or two areas of your life, really break it down into lots of different areas, because we don't often give those thought and just leave things to chance and then get disappointed towards the end of, things not happening, when you think, well, you've really got to start to give some forethought and plan towards that. Things just don't miraculously happen.
You know, you might have the odd thing if you're really lucky every now and then, but it comes down to some intentional planning and working towards those goals.
100%. Yeah, that's exactly the exercise that we go through. It's like all the different areas of life. What does that look like? And you know, I love having mine somewhere visual as well, so that I can keep looking at it and keep taking action towards.
Yeah. Well, the first time I ever did that, actually, Claire, was a number of years ago with the Jack Canfield Success Principles workbook. Oh, it was like, oh my God. And you do, like you were saying, that a lot of the things that I put down a number of years ago, they have come true. And it's not because I've written it down, put it away and forgotten about it. It's because of being really intentional and taking those steps towards it. And things that are completely, I never thought would be within my grasp have come true.
It's so cool.
It is really cool. Yeah. So I think people hear the word manifesting and they just think it's a whole lot of fairy dust that gets sprinkled around. And it's, you know, but true manifestation is being intentional and taking those steps. And that's what gets you from A to B.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah. Now, Claire, and I hope you're not offended when I say it, but, you know, accountants can be known as, and you made a bit of a reference to it earlier, you know, fairly boring and not adventurous. So do you have people who you were colleagues with go, what the hell is this woman doing, you know, starting a business like this?
Oh yeah. I'm sure a lot of people think that I'm pretty crazy, but I also, you know, as much as I tease the profession, I worked for many, many years in corporates, and honestly, a lot of accountants are heaps of fun. You know, I used to laugh so much in a lot of my corporate jobs, and it's funny that we've got such a reputation for being such dorks. I mean, some of the things that I do laugh about, you know, are pretty geeky, but but I've had a lot of fun. And yeah, and I know that sometimes people say to me, they're like, you don't fit the mold of a normal accountant. I'm like, well, you know, first thing, what does that even mean? And yeah, and I guess that we've all got our own different skills and take, and yeah.
And are they wishing they did something similar?
I don't really ask people, you know, is this what you want to do? I guess a lot of people probably don't even consider that it's possible for them. They don't, you know, I know for me that, like, I'd wanted to run my own business, but I was always like, I can't, you know, I don't have enough courage to do that. I don't have enough confidence to do that. So I think, you know, if you'd have asked for me, I would have thought, oh, I'd like to do that, but I can't. So,
so mindset is one of the biggest things to stop us from doing what we want to do. What helps you with working on your mindset so it gives you the confidence to try something different?
I would say the people you're around make such a difference. My husband, he started his own business just before me. And I have to say that watching him have the courage to go and do that was really inspiring for me. He was definitely more the woo-woo one out of the two of us. And, you know, he'd talk about, you can do anything, and being around that energy. And now, like, the mentors, the business friends that I'm around, like, the more that you surround yourself with people doing amazing things, the more normalized it becomes for you. If you're surrounded by people who are like, that's never going to happen, what a waste of money, that's going to fail, that energy just rubs off on you. So if you want to create big things, look very carefully at the people you're around, the energy you're around, and look to shift that, because the more that you're around people who are like, you can do this and that's amazing, and who are cheering you on and celebrating you, the faster you are going to get the results that you want.
And if people are stuck with the naysayers and the ones who are, you know, dampening down the dreams, what do you say? Like you said, surround yourself. How did and you're saying find those people, go and source them.
So a couple of things. Firstly, I would say paying for it. Like, a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, how are you friends with that person? I'm like, I went to a retreat with them. I paid a lot of money to be in their energy. I invested in their mastermind. Like, most of my mentors have become friends of mine. And it's the same with me. Like, a lot of my clients become my friends and we hang out with each other. And it's like, well, that's kind of, you know, if you really have no one in your world, like, pay to be in the energy of the right kind of people. That is how I've made most of my business friends, is through retreats, masterminds, networking events, or coaching. Like, that's a fact. The second thing that I would do is put an energetic intention out there. It sounds cliche, but my husband and I, when we moved to the Gold Coast, we said we really want to find some high vibe couple friends. And it's crazy the way that we are meeting people. We met some of our friends who live in like one of the houses we used to take photos of from our boat that we wanted one day. We met them riding our push bikes alongside them on the way to school each day. I met another like person living again in this amazing, incredible neighborhood, again, riding our push bikes to school drop off today. It's just crazy when you put an energetic intention out, how you start to, it's like your frequency changes and you start to like notice, oh my gosh, they're there, or that opportunity is there. And so I think that it's twofold. It's definitely taking practical steps, but even just saying, I want to find more high vibe friends, that in itself starts to create the momentum of attraction.
Yes. I've certainly found that in the last couple of years as well, and being in a mastermind and being amongst other women who have not the same dream, but, you know, have got that similar intention of wanting to do more and be more, and nothing is off limits, you know, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
And that really does make such a difference. But also having a partner, not every woman is going to be lucky enough to have a partner like yourself and myself that are backing you 100% as well. And that can sometimes be difficult. Well, I imagine if you're stuck in a relationship where your significant other really isn't behind you. So that makes it even more important to find those other people to boost you up as well.
And a couple of things that I do want to say on that, like, firstly, when people are single, they say to me, oh, it's so much easier like to do money stuff and things like this when you've got a partner. And I'm like, not really. Like, I spent a lot of my life single, and in many respects, when you don't have to consult anyone else about a decision, it's a lot easier. Like, if I want to go
That's so true, yeah.
If I want to go and invest, a big amount of money, I spent $60,000 to work with one of my mentors. I knew on the spot I wanted to work with her. But I couldn't just go and that's our household money. I had to go and, have lots of conversations. We had to talk all, when you don't have a partner, you're in the driver's seat. So there is that. And secondly, when it comes to, like, my partner is amazing and really supportive. But when I went to do my first investment, he was terrified. Like, he was like, oh, that's a lot of money. I don't think that's a good idea. Like, the reason he is so supportive now is because he's seen what can happen when I lean in and invest. And that's sort of become almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like, the reason he's so supportive is because I lean in and I get results. I went for this book and then he saw that it became a bestseller. And again, that sometimes you have to be that person that does take that big courageous step and demonstrate, hey, here's what's possible. I have had some people who say to me, what if you are doing that and you're hitting all these things and your partner's still not supportive? And I'm like, do you really want to stay with someone who doesn't want to see you succeed and be happy? Initially, of course, it's normal to be a bit skeptical and question things, or if people aren't familiar with this world. But if over time they can't be on board, it's something you get to check in on.
Yeah, that's so true. Claire, just with the current economic climate that we're in the moment, the who you work with, the clients that you work with, probably wouldn't see that as a block or an obstacle, but for a lot of women, it's going to be something that may block them from taking that step towards something that they may like to do and who they might like to become. What sort of advice might you have for a woman who's in that sort of predicament?
So something that I've learned a lot through this mindset work is that people see what they want to see. And, people go, how are you feeling about the economic crisis? And I'm like, what economic crisis? I mean, I've still got new clients signing with me. I'm still spending, my husband and I both just had our biggest profit years. I'm still spending. I'm going on 2 overseas holidays this year. Everyone I'm following on Instagram's in bloody Europe right now. And I'm like, I don't want to take away from what is going on. I know that I am incredibly privileged. And I recognize that there are a lot of people doing it tough. I would also say that we get to make choices about our lives. And I think if anything, in a time like this, being in the driver's seat of your mindset, of your life, and of your income is more imperative than ever. I don't surround myself with the energy of everything's doom and gloom. I surround myself with the energy of, dude, we run our own businesses. We can print money. And that's sort of what I am choosing to lean into more and more. It's the energy that I create in the circles that I'm around. And, if the cost of things go up, which obviously, I've got a massive mortgage. Of course, I've seen an increase in my mortgage. And I get to go, gosh, I'm privileged that we can go and earn more money and continue to be able to live here. And, a lot of people at the moment who are saying, I'm like, start your own business. Like, what an amazing time to be able to control your income, to be able to be in the driver's seat of how much money you make. So that you're less susceptible to what's going on out there. But also be very mindful of what you absorb. Like, I just don't, I'm not leaning in and reading those articles and being like, oh my gosh, I've got to stop getting my manis petties. I'm like, I don't want to lean into that energy of lack and fear.
Well, that's what sells, though, isn't it? That's what's got the clickbait that people will go to, the first things that they hear on the news of the evening, or if they watch current affairs shows. That's cycled all the time. So when you're constantly fed that, it is a huge job for somebody to either just turn the narrative. I mean, it's easy.
I don't watch the news.
No.
Don't watch the news. You turn off the notifications.
Yeah.
I've got on my phone, basically, I can read headlines, but I can't click into articles because I'm like, there's really like 95% of the news out there is someone got murdered, this happened. Like, of course, it's important to keep at a high level abreast of what's going on in the world, but it's unhelpful to be spiraling into things like that. Like, I want to be spiraling into positive stories and success and happiness. And so they're the sort of the things that I spend my time reading.
Yeah. That is such great advice, because that's what we can control. There's so many things out of our control, but that is definitely one thing that we've all got that ability to do. Exactly. And there are also things to do if people can't at this point in time, in a realistic situation, cannot afford it. There's still so many things that you can do for free. Start learning things about it. So when the opportunity arises, you're ready, you can jump at it. So there's still lots of things that you can do, and work on yourself. A lot of that just doesn't have to cost any money at all. But all of those examples that you gave are spot on, and things that I practice as well. So that's good to hear. Claire, who are your current role models? Because I'm interested, you obviously do lots of learning, and you must absorb a lot of the learnings from those people. So who are they? Who are your favorites?
Oh, I lean a lot into people in the money mindset world. Manifestation Babe is someone whose energy and things I really love. James Wedmore is another mentor that I really look up to, and had the pleasure of going to one of his events a couple of months ago. And, a lot of my business friends, one of my girlfriends just made $1.2 million in the last quarter. And being around people that are just doing amazing things, it's just such a blessing and such an honor. So choose the energy of those that you look up to. Oh, another person that I absolutely love, the Life School Coach podcast. Her name's Brooke Castillo. I remember many years ago, I listened to a podcast episode of her. Oh, it triggered the hell out of me, but I'm obsessed with her work. So basically, she set an intention that she wanted to make $100 million in a year in her business. And in this particular episode, she was at 17 million. And she's like, I'm going to hit the million. And she goes, obviously, I don't need any more money. I mean, I've got everything I could ever need for the rest of my life. And I was like, triggered. But she goes, but I am going to earn $100 million in a year, because I have to do this for all of you, to show you that you can create whatever it is that you want in your life. And she's like, that is why I'm continuing to do this. And the last episode I listened to, she was at, I think, 40 or 50 million. Wow. She's just like, I've been following the journey and watching her live her word and watching her up level. And wow, go and check out her podcast. It's epic.
So what was her name again?
Brooke Castillo.
Brooke Castillo. Well, that's one.
The Life School Coach podcast.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks so much. On a personal note, what's a daily non-negotiable for you in your health and wellness?
Oh, I'd say that one of the things I'm super consistent with is my morning walk. And it's funny, my mum used to get up and walk every day when we were kids. She'd have, I'm one of 5 kids, but at the time I was one of 4. And she'd have prams and bloody babies and toddlers, and we were walking. And it's something that's just stuck with me. When I think about, people go, I'm not doing any exercise. People are like, don't you do a walk every day? And I go, oh yeah, I don't even think of that as exercise. That's just a little habit that I do. My kids, every day. Like we all get up as a family, and I've taken them through, being pregnant, in the carrier, in the pram, scooters, and now they ride their bikes with us every day. And I think that it's just such a beautiful practice. Now we walk to the beach every morning because we live by the beach. And it's just one of, there's lots of other practices that I have, but that's probably my most consistent practice. And I think everyone needs to be moving every day.
For sure. Now, Claire, you have been able to fit so much into your life, and you're only halfway through. So the next half of the life is going to be incredible, given what's just happened, let's say, the last 5-10 years for you. What are you most looking forward to?
Doing more travel. I'm one of those travel junkies. I remember I've been over 60 countries, and I was on this trip in the year 2011. It was before I met my husband or had kids or anything. I took a whole year off and just traveled for a year. And I was in Japan, and I met this guy, and he'd just come from the Middle East. And I was so jealous of him. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool. And he's like, haven't you just been traveling for like 10 months? My dad's a really passionate traveler, and, just watching him now, he's just taking off, and it's like he's traveling with a different kind of vigor now. Like he's going to Papua New Guinea, North Korea. It's like he's now just like, I'm at the end, I may as well just go all in. So he's going to all of these crazy countries. And something else I've noticed is, noticing with my parents as they're getting older, is that they just stop giving less and less of a shit. I think that I've already noticed that myself from when I was younger, and you get and now like I'm dancing on reels, and I'm like, I don't really care if people don't think I look like an idiot. And based on some of the outfits I see my dad wearing, he clearly doesn't care what anyone thinks about him. So that's something fun to look forward to.
It is. So would you ever look at, because my husband and I, we're going for 2 months in France, September, October. But we've always talked about living abroad for at least 12 months. Not too, and I know it won't be too far down the track. Is that something that you would look at doing, or once the kids have finished their schooling and then go? So
that actually came up in our planning session. So we spoke about doing stints. It's just a bit unfortunate the way that it works with schools here, because the summer here is the winter over.
Yes.
Our big long break is the winter, because that's something we spoke about. We'd love to follow, like go spend Christmas breaks in Europe, but it's cold, and here's it's a beautiful time of year to be here. But absolutely, we spoke years ago about going and living in South America for a while, or Central America, and letting the kids learn Spanish. But with young kids, it is kind of it's not that straightforward, because they've got schooling and things like that you do need to consider. But absolutely, that's on my heart 100%. It's just like when the timing will be right with children.
Well, it doesn't have to be within, the children are still that age. It's when they've left the nest.
I'm going to be pretty old by the time my kids leave. I got started a little bit later in life. But I think it'd be a really cool experience to go and do that with them at some stage.
Yeah. Oh, well, I wish you luck on that. So, Claire, how can people
enjoy your time
while
you're overseas? I said, you enjoy your trip. You're actually getting to do this.
You know what? We are so looking forward to it. It seems, whenever you plan, it just seems ages away, and then all of a sudden you go, oh wow, it's less than 2 months now. So it's going to fly. Yeah, it'll be an amazing experience. And we're just doing one country. That's what we love. When we did that in Spain, we sort of just stayed there a couple of years ago in the one spot and tried to do the country, give it a little bit more justice, rather than a breeze through in 3 days and on to the next country, which is easy to do in Europe. So
100%.
Yeah. So, Claire, how can people find and connect with you? I'll have everything in the show notes, but if you want to tell people now.
Yeah, for sure. So I hang out a lot on Instagram. I'm at Clare, CLARE, no I, Claire_Wood_coach. My book, Intentional Profit, or, my website, which is clarewood.com.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that. And Claire, as a closing question, if you could look into the future, what do you hope 80-year-old Claire is going to say about current day Claire?
I think she's going to be really proud of her for having the courage to do really scary things. And I think she's just going to say, just keep on going. Like, don't hold yourself back. You get one life, and go for it.
Oh, that's lovely. And thank you so much for coming on today, Claire, sharing your magic with us, and just a great example of somebody who is redefining this stage of life as well. And the sky is the limit. And thank you for being the person that we can look up to as well with that.
Oh, thanks for having me, Jo. It's great
Pleasure.
chatting.
Thanks so much for listening and sharing your time with me today. I'd love you to hit subscribe on Apple Podcast or your favourite podcast app to keep spreading these empowering messages. Please share this podcast with other incredible midlife women in your world. Join me again next week for another redefining midlife conversation. Thanks again for tuning in.